devastating weapon hits Britain. After D-Day, as Allies were fighting to gain a foothold in Europe, Hitler unleashes his new terror weapon, the V1 flying bomb. Flying at nearly 400 miles per hour, equal to the Mosquito's speed, and packed with high explosive, the V1s are aimed at London. Once they've exhausted their fuel, they crash down on an unsuspecting target. Destroying these fast-flying bombs was a dangerous task. Quickly, Mosquito pilots devise ways to take these terror weapons out of the sky.
They would try and get some height and then swoop down on it and shoot it with cannon.
But obliterating a terror weapon could be life-threatening in more ways than one, as one pilot found out.
And he squirted at it with his cannon, but he was a bit too close and it flew to bits. And a bit of it came in through the front and pierced the dinghy that he was sitting on. It inflated in the cockpit, so up he came off his seat and up towards the roof. But he was very fortunate. He always carried a dagger down his boot. I don't know if he wanted to fight his way out of Germany, perhaps. He produced the dagger, stabbed the dinghy, and down it went, and he got home. When I heard the story, I was absolutely terrified, and I always carried a knife down my own boot after that, just in case.
While the fighters were attacking the V1s in the air, their photo-recon brothers are scouring France and Belgium, hunting down their launch sites.
As we got near the target, of course, the navigator would alert you to your position. Put your nose down onto towards the ramp and the pillbox, and the pilot would release the bombs. We did, I think, over 3,000 sorties against them, and in the end, Hitler only launched 5,000 of them. And it was an ideal target for the Mosquito. The Mosquito was made for V1 sites.
After just 9 weeks, the Mosquitoes have destroyed over 650 of these terror weapons. But the Nazis are not beaten and are fighting as ferociously as ever. Once again, the Mosquito will go into harm's way on one of the most daring and ingenious raids of World War II.
During World War II, the Mosquito was produced in England, Canada, and Australia. The versatile aircraft served in Europe, the Middle and Far East, and on the Russian front. Modern marvels will return in a moment.
By 1944, the Mosquito, affectionately known by everybody as the Mossie, has become the RAF's favorite aircraft. As a supreme bomber, fighter, and reconnaissance aircraft, it is used in almost every theater of war. From its early days, Coastal Command has used Mosquitoes as a vital weapon against harbors, shipping, and vicious German U-boat packs. But by 1944, it has a bigger sting in its tail. Called the Tsetse Mosquito, this aircraft carries a Mullen 6-pound cannon with a kick like a mule.
Rate of fire was about 1 every 2 seconds. You could fire it separately, and that's an automated one, 1 every 2, or you fired it yourself, carrying 24 rounds. Very formidable weapon. It was armor piercing. You should have allowed yourself a range of 1,000, 1,500 yards for the target, but not to go closer than 600 yards. The reason why you shouldn't go in less than 600 yards is because you might get a bit of shrapnel for your own gun coming off the U-boat.
The aircraft also carries 8 60-pound rockets. When they unleash these terrifying weapons, it is equivalent to a broadside from a light naval cruiser. Once on target, nothing is safe from these fearsome Mosquitoes. It seems that there is nothing that the Mosquitoes are not called on to try. Always ingenious, the military are constantly planning different ways to use this unique wooden aircraft against the enemy. But what makes the Mosquito a legend are the daring low-altitude precision raids against the German Gestapo. It is as if the Mosquito crews had declared a personal war against the hated Nazi secret police. Since the early 1940s, the French resistance network has been a major thorn in the side of the German occupation. Its aim was to sabotage the Nazi war effort. By 1944, hundreds of these resistance fighters are imprisoned at the notorious Amiens prison in northern France. Word reaches the Allies that on February 19th, 200 French men and women would be executed. An ingenious plan is hatched. Mosquitoes will bomb the walls surrounding the prison so that the resistance fighters can escape. It is called Operation Jericho. The main prison layout is in the shape of a crucifix and surrounded by a 20-foot-high, 3-feet-thick wall topped with broken glass. Located at the end of a long road, the prison is surrounded by open, flat countryside. The timing of the raid is essential to its success. It must be midday when the prisoners are in the yard and the guards are having lunch. Equally important is precision. Great care has to be taken that enough explosive is used to smash a hole in the outside wall without destroying the prison and killing the inmates. When told of the danger, the resistance fighters reply they would rather die from RAF bombs than by a German firing squad. On the morning of February 18th, the Mosquito crews learn of their target.
We went into the briefing room around about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning. And on the table was a mock-up model of the Amiens prison. And we were told we were going to try and breach the walls and give the prisoners a chance to escape.
The attack, timed for exactly noon, consists of 3 stages.
One squadron was briefed to breach the walls, in other words, to toss the bombs or fly very low level and put the bombs at the base of the walls, if possible. The second squadron were to come in at 12:02 when the guards had gone to lunch and bomb the dining hall, mess hall, anything they could lay their hands on to keep the guards under control. In case of the first squadron not breaching the walls completely, or the second squadron not doing the guards' quarters, etc., then the third squadron would bomb the whole prison.
As the crews wait for takeoff, it looks as if the raid might be called off. The weather has closed in and all aircraft are grounded.
It was very, very bad weather, low cloud and sort of spitting snow, you know what I mean? Very low cloud. And we didn't think it would go on.
What the Mosquito crews do not know is that the French resistance have sent a coded message: strike now or never, execution's imminent. At the last possible moment, with only 2 hours before the deadline, 18 Mosquitoes armed with 500-pound bombs take off in conditions worse than most of the crews have ever encountered.
We climbed through the cloud, and above the cloud we just joined up and went back down onto the sea level across to France.
Flying in 2 groups and at almost 0 feet, they sweep across the English Channel. Amazingly, as they approach the French coast, the weather improves. It seems that luck is on their side.
When we got to France, it was covered in snow, of course, but it was clear. And we flew around and we picked up the road from Amiens to Albert. Long, straight road. and we settled down for the run-in.
In the fields around the prison, French resistance fighters anxiously searched the sky, waiting for the mosquitoes to help their colleagues escape.
We could see the prison ahead, and we got down very, very low indeed, and we were coming down to around about 190, 180 knots.
With only minutes to go, and with the Germans completely unaware, the mosquitoes approached the prison.
We opened our bomb doors about a mile from prison, flying at about 10 to 15 feet. And we had to pull up, go over the walls. We let our bombs go, and they went through the base of the wall. I turned to starboard, and as I looked down, I saw the startled face of the machine gunner in the little cupola on top of the prison. We looked at each other, I suppose, and then I was down onto the deck in loose formation following the wing commander.
The raid is a success, and the mosquitoes have pulled off an amazing feat of courage. 255 prisoners escape, but 37 are killed in the attack, along with 50 German guards. The Gestapo retaliate. 260 prisoners are killed in reprisal. But the raid is a wake-up call to the Germans.
As far as I can see, this was a brilliant piece of precision bombing. The first flight took out the walls, blew in the doors, allowed people to escape. The second flight took the walls down. In fact, they didn't need the third flight. I think it was a startling success because it would have demonstrated to the Germans that the Royal Air Force could place bombs wherever they wanted to across occupied Europe.
The mosquitoes continue to carry out their unique style of war against the Germans. They operated deep inside occupied Europe. Using technology that was years ahead of its time, they hunted down the Nazis. No one was out of their reach.
At the end of World War II, the Mosquito had the lowest loss rate of any aircraft in the Royal Air Force Bomber Command. Modern marvels will return in a moment.
Throughout the long and bloody conflict of World War II, the fast-flying wooden Mosquito was always at the front of battle, always taking the fight to the enemy. But it was the Americans that came up with yet another novel use for this versatile aircraft. Late in 1944, the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, a forerunner of the CIA, took over 5 Mosquitoes to work with their agents in occupied countries. Because the war was moving so rapidly, intelligence had a hard time knowing exactly what the enemy was doing. Only agents behind enemy lines could supply this information. It was vital that these agents get this information across enemy lines. Using Morse code was not an option, as the Germans can easily detect it. They needed something else. 2 American scientists had developed a transmitter that enabled an agent to talk to an aircraft. Called the Joan Eleanor system after one of the scientists' wives, it was an early version of the cell phone. By transmitting on a waveband so narrow, the Germans would have to be within 50 feet of the agent to detect him. But the ingenious part of this plan was the Mosquito. It could fly undetected along a predetermined 150-mile line, listening for the agent's message. Inside the Mosquito is an OSS operative.
Within the fuselage, it was hardly enough room to move, and I was sitting almost on top of a big fuel tank. The petrol in there would expand and would come out on a special valve, and I could see it down there bubbling, and that was petrol. When you switched on your suit, you always expected a spark, boom. But we were so high that there was very little oxygen in the air.
When the Mosquito reaches the area, the OSS operative can begin calling the agent.
This is 5278, 5278, calling Z31, 31, 31, and then wait for him to say yes, I'm here, and give me the answering code.
Sometimes, the Mosquito will fly along the designated route for hours on end before the agent answers.
When you heard them, it was exciting. It was, look, I've got him, finally. Confirmed who he was, and his short messages would be such and such a unit is there, and they're going west on highway number so-and-so, and it's 2 battalions or whatever it is, and that was, and we could get it back in 3-4 hours.
But many times the agent never answers. Sometimes they cannot find a safe place to transmit from, and sometimes no one even knew the planes were there.
Well, when time was up, the pilot knew just how much petrol we had, we'd turn around, go back.
For a long time, the Mosquito had been the weapon of choice as a pathfinder for the bombers. But as a low-altitude marker, it was second to none in helping annihilate the German war machine in France. To enable precision bombing and reduce civilian casualties, the Mosquitoes flew with the squadrons of heavy bombers. As they reached their drop zone, the bombers dropped flares which illuminated the sky, and the Mosquitoes dove down to identify the individual targets.
So 4 of you were coming in, and the rule was that the first one who saw it called tally-ho, just that. You then positioned yourself and dived on one end of the target. And when you judged that you were at the right position above the ground, which was probably at about 1,000 feet, you were coming down at quite a speed after all, you pressed the button and away went 4 500-pound markers. And down they went, and made a great blob of red on the ground. You got the hell out of it.
Only when the target was ringed in red marker bombs did the leader call up to the oncoming bombers. But one of the most demanding roles the Mosquito took on was to cut off enemy supplies. It was a do-or-die mission in the days leading up to and after June 6, 1944, D-Day. As Allied troops fought a bloody battle to gain a foothold in France, the Mosquitoes hunt independently, seeking out enemy supply lines.
Trains we preferred to attack because they were always carrying war material in it, or reinforcements for the front. Sometimes you could attack a train going into a tunnel, and you'd get the other end of the tunnel and wait for it and shoot it up as it came out. It was fun, really, shooting up trains.
During the month of June, Bomber Command flew over 15,000 raids in support of the Allied invasion forces. And by the end of 1944, they had helped drive the Germans back into their own country. Finally, on May 2, 1945, 2 days after Hitler's suicide in Berlin, 126 Mosquitoes took part in the last raid of the war in Europe, their target, the German port of Kiel. Within 2 hours, the city was reduced to rubble, a grim legacy to the destructive power of the wooden wonder. The aircraft that was initially greeted with scorn proved to be no joke. It was one of the most feared and lethal killers of World War II. Over 7,700 were built, and over 40 different versions had served in all theaters of World War II. To the men who had flown it, the Mosquito was second to none.
It was a love affair, and I thought, well, when I finished flying, that was it. I never flew another aircraft again after the Mosquito. Never.
It's wrong, really, to say it was a legend, because the legend suggests it wasn't real, and the Mosquito was certainly reality. But it was a lovely aircraft, beautiful aircraft to look at, marvellous aircraft to fly.
Well, in many cases saved my life, but I mean, I think the Wooden Wonder, it's been used before, but I think the Wooden Wonder really sums it up. It was.